To keep things moving, we're going to move on to our next keynote speaker, and I'm very, very excited to bring him to the stage. He has over 25 years of leadership experience working at Oracle, starting in tech and moving into the application space, where he held the role of Executive Vice President of Sales and reported into the co-CEO of the company. He's now the President of Global Sales and Field Engineering for Salonist, which is the global leader in execution management. And we couldn't be more excited for him to share more about Salonist and how they're helping companies to modernize their execution management process entirely through data and intelligence. Please give me a warm Pittsburgh welcome for Mr. Chris Donato.
Thanks, Justin. All right, can you guys all hear me? All right, yep, good, good. Well, good morning and welcome. I guess I got the, here, hold on, I'm not sure I know what I'm doing here, good. It's great to be here. Eric, thank you. We appreciate the invite. As you heard, I run our global sales and solution engineering team for a company called Salonist. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Salonist, but hopefully after our session today, you have a better feel for how we're engaging with customers and the work we're doing in the market. I am going to spend probably about 15, 20 minutes. I got about 10 slides to take you through to give you some sense of what the company and what the organization is all about, and of course, what our platform and our solution is all about. And then my partner in crime over here, Justin, is going to take you through a demo. I think the demo really does help to crystallize the solution, how we're engaging, how we're solving problems here with our customer base across a number of, as you'll see, a number of different industries. So I thought I would start off with our mission statement. Coming over from Oracle, as you heard, I ran our application business for close to 6 years. And the major challenge we had in securing business, the major challenge we have with our customers, working with them, and them getting up and running, being successful implementations, was how are they going to adjust their processes to take advantage of the technology? And it was the biggest hurdle that we had to get over in convincing them to invest with Oracle, in this case ERP, but it could have been any cloud application. And it was the biggest hurdle determining whether they were successful with their implementation. And for those that have been through a transformation, I'm sure you can relate. Salonist is the only company that I've seen. One of the reasons why I'm here after 4 months, so I'm a 4-month veteran, and as fast as we're growing, I think I could be called a veteran at this point. But Salonist is the only company that I've seen go right against this problem, target this challenge and this issue from beginning to end to solve this problem for our customer base. And do it very, very quickly. And I think one of the common themes you'll hear today is that two common themes. One is around data, how we leverage information, how we get our arms around data to produce outcomes at a completely different pace, so speed. So data and speed. You'll see that with many of the customers we're working with over the years, they are producing results within days and weeks once they get their data stream set up. So very, very quickly, very different from the world that I came from with Oracle. Because Oracle, you're implementing an ERP system, especially in supply chain. It could take 12 months, 15 months. I mean, for any of you that have been through a transformation, 18 months to see ROI. Not in the case with Salonist. It's very, very quickly, and you'll see some of the customer examples. And basically, if I had to sum it up, Salonist gives you a digital x-ray of your process, where you can see then all your bottlenecks, your friction points, and as you can see here on the screen, inefficiencies that in many cases companies don't realize are happening or they can't see. And I think the most interesting part of the technology, yes, is serving up, giving you that digital picture, but the most interesting part is how we move forward, give you recommendations on how to change and adjust that process, how to streamline that process, and then take action. You can actually write back to your source systems. You can use our workflow solution. You can use a solution like ServiceNow that we can tap into to take action, to make that change. And Salonist essentially becoming the orchestration tool for your application environment. All right. So from a company perspective, we are a global company. A company was born out of academia back in Munich. The three founders started the company in college, very Google-ish. We'll see if the story ends like Google. But they started the company in college, applying process to business problems in the commercial market. And the company has evolved from process mining to true data execution. So an execution management system that takes data and allows you to take action on it. And again, right back to those source systems. And we're doing this now for about, as you can see, actually the slide's wrong here. It's an old slide, but 1,300 customers today, many of whom you'll see are in the enterprise space across many, many different industries, data at scale, very complex processes. We got about 2,500 customers. 2,500 employees. We'll probably add another 1,000 this year. Employees. We are creating a new technology market, very well known over in Europe, somewhat well known in the US, but we're growing in the US. But we own about 70% of the market. Company's about $11 billion in valuation. We grew 100% last year, and we'll grow about another 100% this year. So very much in growth mode. Therefore, my comment about more money. You kind of get that. All right? Problem, and I think all of us can relate to this, both professionally and even in our home lives, just how data is growing. The data sphere is growing. Our phones, sensors, data retention are contributing to significant growth in data. But not many understand that we measure now in zettabytes, 1 billion terabytes, tripling every 5 years. So the data volume is increasing so much day to day. And it's a challenge, but in many cases, it's an opportunity. And again, an opportunity that we are working on with our customers with our solution, which is our platform. Now, IDC will tell you, and some of the other analysts, that 60+% of the investments that are going to go to data movement and data capture is going to be focused on the data pipeline. So essentially simulations, recommendation capabilities within your infrastructure. So again, big challenge, but also a big, big opportunity for all of us. You take this challenge a step further when you're looking at the market and you compare the growth of technology to productivity. At best, productivity is flat. I mean, and I would tell you, it's absolutely goes back to my point about Oracle and the challenge we had at Oracle. Very good technology in the back office, and it could have been any technology. I mean, there's a lot of great technology out there in the cloud, Salesforce, Oracle, and the ERP space, Workday, number of organizations that have produced very good technology. But again, the biggest challenge was, are you taking advantage of the technology? Are you taking advantage of the technology to streamline your operations at the level to get the return that you expect? And when you look at the chart and you look at information that's currently out in the market, at best, productivity is flat. So there's still a lot of work there to take advantage. But again, this is the exact problem that Salonist goes after within your enterprises and your organizations. Now, you take this a step further and look at the four walls of a company and the things that are really contributing to process, people, and impacting technology from a process standpoint. Some of those forces are outside, like the pandemic, what we've all been dealing with, regulations. When it comes to people, just hiring, I mean, we're in a talent war in many respects. Trying to bring in really good talent is very difficult, can be very difficult. Trying to keep that talent and then making sure that talent does more with less, all right? And the age-old problem that we've been dealing with for many, many years. And then technology, silos of information, which I'm sure you all can relate to within the organization, where information is in a number of different places, and trying to get your arms around that information to truly outline a process and take advantage of the data, the richness of the data that you have to make better decisions. And again, this is what it's all about. How do we serve up information in a way, identify the challenges that you may have within your process so that you can produce outcomes at a completely different pace and hopefully drive or make you more of a disruptor in your particular industry than you are today, all right? Now, these are, I think Justin's we're gonna hit on procurement, right? Procure to pay and a couple different use cases in the demo. I would say these are three of the probably most prevalent use cases across You look across those 1,300 customers, these are the most prevalent ones that you would see, but they're not the only ones. So we have companies like a Berkshire Hathaway Energy, BHE, that's using Salonist to help with their transformation from about 10 or 11 opcodes, mostly Oracle on-prem, some SAP, but moving to cloud. And they're leveraging it to look at how they're going to change their processes to take advantage of the new technology, and using it as a simulation tool as well. Simulating, and if we make this change, what will that outcome look like? We see the same thing at Chevron. Chevron's a big customer of ours. They're moving from ECC to S4. Again, same thing. And then using Salonist sort of as a support function, making sure people are adhering to the process as they go through this transformation. But when you look at these three use cases, order management, I was just with a distributor. I won't name their name. But they shipped about 30 million of product. I know that sounds crazy. 30 million of product that they did not bill for, that we identified. And this happens a lot. As crazy as it sounds, for businesses that in many cases are well-run, large companies with big brand that have done very well, we see this challenge a lot. Why are orders being blocked? Orders getting blocked for credit holds that shouldn't be blocked because the customer's a good paying customer, yet we sacrifice our ability to perform at a high level in servicing those customers. You look at AP, are we paying too early? Are we paying too late? And identifying the opportunities to drive a better use of working capital within the company. And then procure to pay, which again, we'll spend some time on with the demo. Procure to pay, how do we improve your FTR rates? How do we reduce the manual intervention in that process? Vodafone's a very good customer of ours, reduced their cost structure by 11% with this. Another big use case in procurement, we have a number of customers using Salonist as a shared services platform. So they're feeding in their on-prem applications into Salonist as that shared service platform to get consistency and to reduce their cost structure and just improve overall operations in P2P. Deutsche Telekom is a big customer that's doing just that with our platform. All right, so it's a number of really good examples here that hopefully Justin will see if he shares those in the demo. We'll see how good he is. All right, the solution. So the EMS platform, and what we'll show you today, is essentially broken down into three innovation areas. One, around real-time ingestion. So we will ingest data at scale. So again, you look at those 1,300 customers, many of them are very large global companies, very complex processes, a lot of data, some data in homegrown systems. We will ingest that data at scale. All right, you can see here we've got about 100 plus connectors out of the box, right into SAP, Oracle, all the big players that you'd expect. All right, we also can put agents on the desktop to track how an employee is using the system, to give you that full digital picture, that full digital x-ray of how that process is working. And that happens in the process intelligence, where the analytical engine will give you that digital picture and then serve up recommendations and changes that you should make. It's the same area where you can do some simulations as well on that particular process. And then we take it a step further, and you can take action right back to the source systems directly, use our workflow tool, tap into, for those that are using ServiceNow, we have a big partnership. We have integration right into the ServiceNow platform, so you can tap right into that to make the appropriate changes in the system. All of this to improve your top line, obviously your bottom line, but also the green line. I just heard some comments about sustainability. I mean, obviously sustainability is a big topic, especially across different industries here in the market. And this is a big focus for us in the work that we're doing. And you look at these stats, I mean, they're crazy when you really think about it. The level of CO2 emissions to produce, food, in this case, T-shirts, but it's just crazy when you think about it. And then, of course, the last one around shipping. And this is a big one for us on the shipping front, because there's a number of examples which we can share with you where we've helped organizations improve their cube fill rates, both on water and on land, all right? Instead of shipping containers that are half full, that are 25% full, making sure that they're 100% full. Obviously streamlining their cost structures, but at the same time reducing their CO2 emissions and their overall carbon footprint, all right? And we see an example here. ABB is a very large customer of ours. We're working on expanding some of the work we're doing there right now. And they have improved their shipping significantly on water. So we've spent a lot of time working with them on how they optimize their containers and shipping, reducing, again, their cost structure, but improving their carbon footprint in doing that. The platform will allow you to set up metrics and on different CO2 emissions around different processes within your business. At the same time, we've partnered up. Some of you may be familiar with EcoVadis. All right, so we've partnered up with them. That's part of our platform, so you can track the sustainability ratings of your suppliers, and all of that is part of the solution that we deliver. All right. So we talk about our customers. So this is 1,300 customers. This is a quick snapshot across different industries that we have. You'll find that many of these customers started off with 3 or 4 processes, saw results within a period of 4 months, 5 months, added more processes, and then again that just continues to evolve and move forward as we expand our relationship with that customer. Very different than the world that I left. Again, for anybody that's implemented an ERP system, it may take you 12, 15, 18 months, obviously, as I said earlier, to get that ROI, but it may take you that long to get the thing implemented. And from a sales engagement, just from an overall engagement period, you may not be back at the table for over a year. Not the case here. Not the case here. Many of the organizations, again, start small with some of the key process areas, obviously where they're having business problems, and then quickly expand. So you look at some of these customers. Exxon in the lower right. We do order to cash across the whole company. They're a huge customer of ours. Then they just started deploying Salonist around their maintenance of equipment and streamlining that whole process. You look at, I mentioned Chevron, Schlumberger, both going through the same thing, moving from ECC to S4 and leveraging the technology as part of that overall transformation process. In the manufacturing space, they're not up there, but BMW is a huge customer of ours. It started off with like 5 processes. They're at 50. I mean, they run Salonist across the whole company. So they're a big player and a big customer of ours. A number of the folks in the technology space, Dell, Splunk, Uber use us for procure to pay. Same thing in the telco space. I mentioned Vodafone, procure to pay. Deutsche Telekom, procure to pay. We do a lot with Dr. Keurig, Dr. Pepper. They actually implemented Salonist in their procure to pay, improved their overall on-time delivery from 61% to 79% within 4 months. And this is right in the height of the pandemic for them. At the same time, on the order management side, they reduced their overall blocked orders by, I think it was over 400%, 444% improvement. And we see that a lot with organizations on the order management side where their orders are getting blocked for reasons that they shouldn't be. All right. So again, some of these things sound so straightforward, but as I said earlier, it's just very interesting how when we get engaged with many organizations, there's lots of inefficiencies that they're not even aware of. And we help to surface those, and then again, working with the system and of course our customers, how best to address that right back and make those changes in the system. And the last slide I have here before I hand the baton over to Justin, is a sort of a testimonial, but this is free advertising for us. We did not expect it. So Murray, their CFO of BP, BP is a very big customer. We're about to actually expand again with them. They're running probably 15 or so processes, and they're going to move up to about 30. They're going to double what they're doing with us. But on an earnings call, they talked about $2.5 billion in savings that they drove at the company. $800 million of it came from procurement, right? And the product that they talked about on the call was Salonist. So we are the platform, the tool that they're using to help streamline that part of the business. Again, they've now moved into order to cash and some other areas of the company. Actually, they're going down the same path that Exxon's going, where they're going to use us for maintenance of their equipment as well. So hopefully this gives you some level of a foundation of what the technology is all about. I was going to say I could take a couple questions, but probably best to have Justin come up. We'll do the demo. He's going to spend about 10 or 15 minutes taking you through the technology. We do this a lot. I mean, it really does help crystallize how we impact the work that you're doing, how we impact processes and engage with our customers. And then from there, hopefully we have 10 or 15 minutes. We'll take questions on the technology. All right? Good? All right. All right, Justin, it's all yours. Don't mess up. Come on up. Words of encouragement.
I'm 7 weeks with the company, unlike Chris is much more tenured. And he sets the bar really low for me, right? When he's telling me to come up here, he's like, yeah, come up, it'll be good practice. And then later says, no, Justin will show this, Justin will show that. So bear with me as is it connected in okay? I'll describe a little bit of kind of how we do it, right? So essentially what Salonist does is we connect into all your transactional applications and take a look at all the IDs and all the timestamps and all the transactions that exist in it. We suck all that data in and then build out process maps of everything that exists in your systems today, right? So, each individual ERP application or whatever, there we go, is usually decent at figuring out like, what are the workflow I need to do to, create a purchase order or, what's the workflow that I need to go through to receive goods. What they're not good at is doing things like stitching together processes across multiple applications, right? And that's kind of where Salonist shines. So what we've done is put together this, cloud environment where you can look at all the transactions in all your applications and then build out different ways of looking at the interconnectedness between all those processes. This is a little hard to see maybe because it's a little, but bear with me. So what this is it's a map of a digital supply chain. And you guys have all probably seen these where you do it in PowerPoint or something like that. And you say, okay, well, I've got, suppliers who are bringing in materials into these distribution centers. I'm taking those distribution centers. I'm routing the source materials to factories. They're producing product. Those go to new distribution centers. Those go to retail locations or to customers. And that's what we call like a best case or a happy path, supply chain, right? That's not what this is. We're looking at the transactions in the system. So when we map out your digital supply chain between all of your distros and factories, et cetera, it's where the materials are actually flowing, right? So you get a real-time view of what's going on inside your business. And then what we can do is we can layer in some KPIs on top of that, like service levels, to say, when we look at the supply network, right, what's the service level of each of the suppliers that are feeding into that and coming out of it? What's our transportation management system looking like? And we can surface real-time insights related to that. Actually, I'll full screen it. So the way that we do this, like I said before, is we look at processes across multiple applications. And I think the best way to highlight this is to look at, procurement, right? Normally you'd look at a procurement process, you'd map out this kind of happy path. But there's a lot of processes around procurement that impact it, right? So you've got order management processes where, we create the initial orders, it generates demand. That demand goes into procurement to source materials. We move into a material management process where, we're putting things in the distribution centers, we're picking them, we're putting them up on the trucks or rail cars or whatever to move to factories in order to actually make materials out of them. And then we have the production processes as well, right? So all these things are actually tied together, but they're all separate systems, so you don't get this kind of view where you can see how my orders are impacting my procurement activities, how my procurement activities are affecting my material management and inventory levels, how my inventory levels are affecting my production, which is then, back affecting my orders and my end delivery to customers. So it's a new way of looking at things that nobody's really done before. And the other thing we can do here is we can look at the interconnectedness of the KPIs. So I put these three up here because I think it highlights something, right? Normally what you do as a company is you look at customer satisfaction. It's a trailing indicator. It's a far trailing indicator, right? By the time my customers are upset because I'm not delivering orders, I have a whole bunch of things that went wrong back in that network of processes that I didn't identify earlier, right? So what we try to do is, and I put these three up here, there's a ton of out-of-the-box KPIs related to these, but one of the things that affects customer sat if you're delivering orders late is production adherence, right? So if you could look at, am I actually producing product on time according to my demand schedules? It's still a trailing indicator, but it's more of a leading indicator than customer sat, right? And if I look back behind that to my supplier reliability for source materials, that's about as close as I can get to where the problem's actually happening, right? So we can look at all these individual KPIs and you can monitor them to see, now that I know the downstream impact of these processes, where is something going off the rails? And as we drill into it a little more, if I were to look at just supplier reliability and isolation, the other thing we've done is built out some machine learning as well as just some built out analytics by default that let you look at things like we talked about supplier reliability and give suggestions as to what's going on under the covers. So if I'm looking at that as leading as I can get indicator of supplier reliability, right? I can look in and it's gonna tell me, I've got these factors that are affecting supplier reliability. If I go fix those early, I don't have such an impact on customer satisfaction, right? And so if we look at like late delivery, it's even gonna drill in, and here's where the machine learning comes in, where we start to try to guess, to some extent, it's like fuzzy matching, why we're having these reliability issues. So it looks at a whole bunch of correlated data, right, that comes out of these transactional applications, and in this case it's saying, it's all about lead times. In our demand forecasting or material management and production forecasting systems, our lead times for like steel coils in this instance are set at 20 days. But recently we're noticing an extension of those lead times. So the average lead time is getting longer and longer. So you could do this kind of thing, like I said, in isolation in an analytical platform or data warehouse. We've already built all of it though, right? And we're looking at the process, not just sort of the snapshot KPI. The other thing that Chris highlighted on is we can write back to the systems. So normally you get a report like this, you get someone to put both up on a screen, and then you swivel chair the data between your report and your transactional application, right, to change each of these lead times. That's another opportunity to introduce error, right, because you've got a person doing it. So the other thing we can do is either through an automated fashion or in this report, we can just go ahead, click on one, say update master data, it's gonna write it back to your, like I said, demand forecasting or production forecasting system and change the lead time automatically. So we don't need to go modify each one of these things individually. We can just tell it, hey, update with the new lead time. If you look at this every day, right, you can do those, or if you're gonna look at it every day, you can just automatically say, hey, whenever you need to, update the lead times on these things so it factors back into your forecasting systems. So the next thing that I wanted to show you a little bit is, let's say that we've done that, right? We've fixed our supply network issues, our supplier reliability issues, we've updated our lead times. Let's fast forward 15 days or 30 days or something like that and look at the aftermath of it. So I guarantee procurement's not the only one looking at the problem, right? And if you're having supplier reliability issues, that's probably causing production issues as well. So we see this a lot in our customers where, again, if they're all looking at the information in isolation, in silos, they don't notice other people trying to correct the problems for them, right? And one of the other common things you do if you're running out of materials in a production facility is just increase safety stock levels, right? So someone in the plant goes in and says, okay, I'm gonna increase safety stock levels. That's gonna impact me by tying up another $50 million worth of cash or $100 million of cash, whatever it is, right? So the same thing here. Yeah, there we go. Live demo. So the other thing we can do here is, since we're looking across all these processes and the interconnectedness of them, we can look at that problem as well around safety stock levels and say, okay, They've shifted all the safety stock levels. And it's gonna notify you if you're a procurement specialist. But also, as inventory builds up like that, it's gonna tell us again, why is inventory building up? It's because somebody went and adjusted all these variables in the demand forecasting system or in the product master as well. So the same kind of thing, I could click in here and just readjust these safety stock levels back down now that my suppliers are more reliable again, they're delivering materials according to my lead times, right? I don't need this excess safety stock. So it's again, things that you wouldn't notice if you're not looking at these processes across the whole organization, but you're just looking at them kind of in isolation, right? So the other thing Chris highlighted on is the complexity of these processes. So if I look at just one of these, right, if I just look at the procurement process, you get the happy path. And this is what your system integrator will document for you as, hey, here's your best in case process. They may give you a few permutations as they go through it and say, sometimes you have free text requisitions that occur, sometimes you have partial deliveries, that kind of thing. But when we tie into the data in the system, what we really see is a map like this, where there's actually a ton of activities and a ton of routes that these activities take. And while this data is anonymized, it's actually sourced from a customer. So this is what an actual customer process looks like, just for procurement in isolation. So what this does, though, is if you're doing interviews with people, right, and trying to figure out what's wrong with a process, you may get the very long tail of this thing, right? Something that happens 3 times a year, as opposed to focusing on the things that happen most commonly in the system or the things that are affecting your bottom line the most. So what this does is it gives you a view, by the number of times that iteration happens, and also it'll give you a view of what the average delay is, right? So we can look at throughput time, and we can say, on average, when a free text requisition occurs, which is the example I'm gonna continue to focus on, we do that basically 1/3 of the time or 1/4 of the time, right? And what happens is it delays the overall process by half a day whenever we have a free text requisition, right? So it's not a long tail item that you're trying to fix. It's quantifiable data that this is something that impacts your business a lot. This is something that's driving a lot of productivity issues, costing you a lot of money. And then again, pre-built analytics, right? So I know I'm hitting this over and over again, but I like this one because if you look at free text requisition, for instance, we all know this happens a lot, right? You put all this effort into building these contracts. You negotiate the lowest price, you think you're doing a great job, but in order to actually realize the benefits, people have to use the contracts. And every time they put in a free text rec for something that, in this case, exists on a contract or is a requisitionable item off a contract instead of free text, it's just costing the company money that you've already saved them, right? They're just taking the savings away. So it's another action that you can take in the system is to look at some of these and even beyond just looking at what's the cost, both the labor productivity cost, because if it's a catalog item, you may only touch a PO once, or in this case, 1.5 times, right? But if it's a free text item, there's a lot of work you need to do to actually go and renegotiate the price with the supplier, make sure that you get the approvals right, make sure you're not paying too much, et cetera, et cetera. And it takes 4.4 touches on average instead. And then the other thing you can do coming out of this is, Chris alluded to action, right? So not only can we write back in isolated incidents, but we can also take actions in a more complex way. So we build out action flows. Some of these are pre-packaged, but you can also build them yourself. And in this case, I like this example because if we find an item that exists in the catalog through kind of a fuzzy matching algorithm, what happens is you can say, okay, if the material's in the catalog and we're pretty confident about it, just automatically convert it, right? Remove the original request, create a new one, do it off the contracted item, convert it to a contract-based PO, and then the fun one is enroll the employee in training. If you do that enough times, they'll stop doing free text requisitions and start using the contract instead because they don't want all this training on their PDP. But the other piece of it is maybe it's an item that things have changed. There's a new machine in the factory. There's a new product that got released that didn't get blown out in the material master properly. So people are ordering this because they actually do need it, and you're seeing it happen over and over again. If that's the case and it sees a consistent need for this new material, notify a procurement specialist, they'll review it, put it in the catalog, negotiate a contract out of it. So all that work that you do around, hey, what do we need? Why do we need it? How much do we need it? That kind of stuff. It's surfacing the data inside the system, and not only for you to go look at and find, but it's actually going to notify you, right? And say, hey, there's a new material. We do have a decent amount of it that's required. Why don't we go and create a contract around this instead of doing it in isolation? That's pretty much it. Chris can tell me if I missed anything. Cool, thanks everyone. Take some questions, I think, if there's still time. Otherwise, I do have one more we could do, but I know it's running a little long around sustainability. Any questions? Yeah, good. Yes, the question is, how long does it take to implement? Average for most of our customers is about 4 weeks. So, and this is to plug in and get insights, right? There's obviously a longer tail around optimization after you plug in and get the insights. So in order to actually realize value, I mean, it's like 6 weeks on the short end?
I mean, I think it comes down to really the data streams. And we dealing with large organizations, many of them have custom systems, so we tap into those, but that may take a little bit more work than we typically go through with some of the out-of-box applications and the APIs that we have. But yeah, I think that's right. I mean, again, that Dr. Carrig, they were going through a lot with the pandemic, and they had results in 4 months once we got everything set up. So, but we have many examples of customers seeing results in weeks.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, realizing value, like realizing bottom line value in the quarter they implement it, which is just, like Chris said, coming from Oracle, shocking to me.
Yeah.
Good question. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. So the question's around the ServiceNow partnership, and I mean, feel free to take it if you want.
So we have a partnership, pretty deep partnership with ServiceNow. So it's two aspects to it. One is the engineering side, so we're integrating right into their platform and the work that we're doing from an engineering perspective. And then on the go-to-market side, they actually can sell our product. So they actually can sell. You'll still contract the way the process works with Salonist, but they actually get credit because the solutions are very complementary in many respects. As we said, and I hear this a lot because a lot of folks use UiPath. You have ServiceNow. These are complementary solutions to what we do. We serve up the problem. We give you that picture, that digital picture. We identify and make those recommendations, and then you can use our tools, our workflow tool, as well as some of the other capabilities, but then you can tap right into a ServiceNow or even a UiPath from an RPA perspective. So we are doing a lot with them. Bill, McDermott is very familiar with us from his SAP days, and quickly when he moved over to ServiceNow, we formed a partnership with them. So we're doing a lot of work with them.
It's a powerful feedback loop, right? If you're building all these tasks and workflows in ServiceNow, you're able to actually measure and monitor how effective they are and re-optimize. So a lot of that used to be manual, right? You'd look at a workflow and say, okay, how long is it taking? Who's doing what? Now it's just surfaced through this kind of tool.
Yeah, and I think, Eric, their interest, for anyone that's a ServiceNow customer, they've spent a lot of time in the IT space, and we spend a lot of time in the business space. I think a lot of these processes have to do with business process, whether it be the CFO office, supply chain, procurement, the CPO. And so I think, for them, they're looking to drive into those areas as well with their technology. The company started off as a process mining, right? Giving you that digital picture. And there's other companies. Now, the difference I will tell you right now, I mean, in the market that we're in, the process mining that we do is very, very much at scale. So one of the biggest differentiators is that part of it can be done at scale compared to anybody else. There's some smaller companies out there, but the real value is just what you said. There's work. There is work. Yeah. Remember, we take the log files and the timestamps, but there is work.
Yeah, it's an open platform. It's less an integration team. But it is some technical work, right? So it's an open platform as well. So if you've got an EBS instance and you've built a bunch of extensions to the tables, we take the base structure of it, and it's just metadata, right? So it's like mapping column name equals this in reality. You just add on to that metadata, and it's all relatively free text, right? so you're not, we still suck the data in automatically, right? There's a bunch of machine learning algorithms under the covers that try to navigate through what it is as well. But at the same time, yeah, there's definitely a bit of work to do some
I mean,
mapping.
that's
Yeah.
where there is a little bit of work there.
Yeah.
And you know, every large organization we deal with pretty much has that situation. So
Yeah.
we're used to dealing in that environment.
But don't think it's like an EBS implementation
No,
or an
that's
upgrade.
right.
It's weeks. It's not years worth of work.
Yeah,
like an upgrade
I mean,
would be.
again, the two biggest takeaways I would tell you is, one, how efficiently we can leverage data and information, and just how fast we can do it. I mean, I'd be the first person to tell you, with the CEO of our company, very sharp guy, 32,
Yeah.
very sharp guy. But I was a little skeptical when they were chasing me to come over back about 8 months ago, just because I hadn't seen anything in the market at this level, and I hadn't seen anything in the market do it this quickly. But you go down our customer list, there's a lot of testimonials there, similar to the BP slide of folks doing that work. So it's pretty innovative technology, for sure.
Cool.
Any other questions? There's a couple variations from a commercial perspective, one of which is very interesting because I could never, working for Oracle for many years, I could never get Larry to step up to, which I'll go through. But so you license it on either APC or process, and then there's a user component.
An APC is just storage, like processing power, basically.
Yeah, it's basically storage. But the other commercial structure that we will absolutely use, and this is the one that I struggled a little bit with Oracle, we will do a value-based agreement. So there's sort of a base investment, and then we have shared risk together. As you save, there's a percentage of that will come back to Salonist. We set some thresholds, and it's starting to really pick up steam. Some companies struggle a little bit with it because of predictability, right? I mean, from a budget standpoint, but it is truly shared risk.
Yeah.
You save $1, you know, I don't know, whatever the percentage is, 10, 20 cents comes our way. And we validate that. That's the other thing that, again, I would tell you as a takeaway. At Oracle, we struggled a little bit because of the length of the implementations around ERP, especially in areas like supply chain, of trying to get to that true savings. And you get there, but it's just a lot more work and the ROI. Here we can identify very quickly, and you'll see a lot of the testimonials if you spend some time talking to our customers, where we have a lot of validation of an agreement, alignment on what they're saving, or the value, like working capital, that they're seeing a benefit from. And that is another differentiator. But because of that, we will do agreements, we will do commercial structures, value-based agreements, where it's sort of a shared risk between us and the customer. So I think it's actually pretty unique in the technology industry.
It's coming.
Yeah, I mean, the truth is, it's new.
Yeah.
The relationship from an engineering perspective, not as new, because we've been working with them for a while. The go-to-market is, I don't know, it's probably 3-4 months in the making. But that is the plan, to be able to break it down and show a customer that.
Technically capable.
Yeah,
We don't
no,
have customers who've done
definitely.
it yet.
But
Yeah.
we're not quite there yet. I mean, we've had big announcements here over the last 3 months, and the teams are working closer together. But there's just not enough proof points yet.
Yeah.
Actually, I would agree with you. I would agree with you. Anything else? Okay, sure.
Okay, good. I wanted to leave enough time, but we do have 1 minute. So I will, the other thing I wanted to show is, we talked about green, right? Between the EU Green Initiative and those kinds of things. So because we're able to stitch together the flow of materials all the way from source to the end, it's not just about, you know, like, how much is it costing me to produce a product, or what disruptions am I gonna have? But we can also look at the suppliers that are feeding into it. So you can say, what's the CO2 footprint of this t-shirt that's actually landing at the retail store, right? On an individual item by item basis, as well as a whole bunch of other facets. So all these, again, are pre-built analytics, really easy to adopt and use.
Let me make one last point, just because I think it's obviously relevant, kind of going back to the question about the commercial stuff. So typically, just so you understand how we work, typically a customer will make an investment around a couple of processes, and I kind of said this earlier, and then they'll grow with that. So that's typically how we start off, and I should make the point that we do provide a bunch of services, both data scientists as well as engineering services as part of that to get folks going and to support. Ultimately, if you look at BMW, you look at BHE, Chevron, one common theme, we're just working with a very large American automaker on indirect procurement. Hopefully we'll have a contract here in a week, make the announcement. But they have already a COE. So that's a big thing, a center of excellence or a transformation type office. And you find more and more companies have that, but that's something that we push for over time to create that COE office as you expand and look at other process areas. So again, but that's work that we will engage around and provide resources around to help get that set up at your organizations and at your companies. So, all right. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Hopefully we have a chance to engage with a lot of you folks, and thanks again. Eric, thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, thanks.